Welcome to our posts. Today we will see stories of r/malicious compliance. Company doesn't allow me to have my phone, so I cost them $100K plus. I have worked in warehouses for years. A few years back I was a contractor. Companies would hire us and bring in 20 plus people for a few weeks when they desperately needed help. I was a shift lead, usually the highest person on site, and needed to talk to my boss regularly throughout the day on a company phone. One warehouse had a policy where only managers could have their phone on the floor, and technically I wasn't a manager. Everyone under me was instructed to leave them in their car or a locker. However, I needed mine. One day I was talking on the phone to my boss, and one of the managers for the company we were working for saw me and demanded I hand him my phone, and I refused. He then threatened to kick me out, so I rounded up all my workers and said we are taking a break. We all go outside, and I tell my boss what happened. He comes to the site instantly and starts talking to their boss and tells him I need my phone on the floor, but since I don't have manager in my title they refuse. So my boss decided I can't do my job, so nobody under me can do theirs either. The end of the day, the other company is pissed we didn't get any work done and decides to cancel our contract, which cost them hundreds of thousands of dollars because it's written in the contract that they will have to pay to send us home before the original end date. We all still got paid and got 2 weeks off before having to go somewhere else. Next story. Cable company told me I don't have cable. This happened around the year 2000. I had just purchased a house and met the previous owners while they were moving out. They were really nice people and we had a friendly conversation about the house. The previous owner mentioned that the cable bill was paid up until the end of the month, about 3 more weeks, and that he had already turned in his cable box, but the cable signal should still be active till the end of the month. I told him thanks and we let him finish packing up. We moved in the following week, and when I hooked the cable to my TV, I got all the basic cable channels, which was all I was planning on getting anyway. Come the end of the month, I called the cable company and asked to sign up for basic cable. The sales representative told me that there was going to be a $100 hookup fee. I told them that the previous owner had left his account active and that I was literally watching cable as we speak, so there should not need to be a hookup fee because the cable was already hooked up. They just needed to start billing me for basic cable. The representative then clicked on her keyboard and told me that her data showed that the address I was at does not have cable and that they will need to send out a crew to activate the signal. I told her that I was not paying $100 for a hookup fee and said never mind, I don't want cable. I waited another month, still had cable, and called the cable company back to ask what it would cost to get basic cable. A different operator from before said it would cost something like $30 a month and a $100 hookup fee. I asked why the $100 hookup fee? She said that it was because my address does not currently have cable. I told her never mind, I don't want cable unless they waive the hookup fee. She said she was not authorized to waive the fee. I just thanked her and hung up. For years later, we still had cable, but we ended up moving out of state for work. Next story. Ignore the time difference in the evening? I'll ignore it in the morning. Not me, but my father-in-law's story. In the 1970s, before email and faxes, my father-in-law, Carl, worked as a trust agent for a bank in the Midwest, which is on Eastern Time, ET. He handled trusts and estates for bank customers, including one older lady. Her son-in-law, Bruton, lived in California, which is on Pacific Time, PT, 3 hours behind Carl, and managed his mother-in-law's estate on her behalf. Bruton used to call Carl with questions, which is not a problem. Except Bruton would call Carl at home at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, expecting him to answer questions. Carl would be at home, eating dinner, or spending time with his family, so Bruton's calls were unwelcome. Carl would explain the time difference and said that Bruton should call before 5 p.m. Eastern Time, not PT. But Bruton always ignored Carl's requests and demanded that Carl call him back first thing in the morning. Carl was nice and would wait until 11 a.m. Eastern Time to give Bruton time to get settled in his own office. Until he decided he'd had enough. The day after Bruton's latest call, Carl went to his office extra early, got the information, and then promptly at 8 a.m., Carl called Bruton's house. A sleepy Bruton answered the phone and croaked, "Hello? Good morning, Bruton." Carl all but hollered into the phone. "What time is it?" Bruton groaned. "It's 8 o'clock, Carl said. But it's 5 o'clock in the morning here. Huh, so it is. I guess there's a 3-hour time difference. But you said you wanted these answers first thing in the morning, and it's 8 o'clock here, so I thought I'd give you a call. Bruton never called past 5 p.m. again. Next story. Oh, I'm on private property? My first time posting here. I used to work for a supermarket chain, and quite often I'd be asked by management to work at other locations. Most of the time, this wasn't a big deal. I was happy to help out, it gave me an excuse to drive and have the petrol paid for. However, one day I was asked to work at a location very far away at a very early hour of the morning. I initially refused on the grounds that I would have to wake up at around 2 a.m. in order to have a shower, breakfast, and drive to be on site for 5 a.m. After some arm bending from management, I finally relented and begrudgingly agreed I would do it. Due to the drive not taking nearly as long as I initially expected, I arrived on location at about 4:30 am. I waited in my car with the music playing. At 4:50 am, I get a loud knock on the car window, nearly making me jump out of my skin. It was the manager for that store, who, never seeing me before, did not know who I was. The conversation went as follows. Manager, you need to leave. This is private property. Me, oh, but. Manager, interrupting, I don't care. Go. Now. Me, quickly realizing I can play this to my advantage. Oh, I'm sorry, sir. I don't want any problems. Of course, I'll go right away. Sorry. And as per his request, I drove home with a smile on my face, knowing that I have the rest of the day free to myself. A few hours later, I get a phone call. I answer the unrecognized number, and I recognize the voice immediately. It was the manager who told me to leave. Manager, hello. I'm looking for my name. Me, hi, yeah, that's me. Manager, this is manager name, calling from location. I was expecting you to work with me today. You should have been here for 5 a.m. Me, trying to sound casual, yeah, I was there waiting in my car. You told me to leave, remember? Manager, but you didn't say that. Me, interrupting, there are no ifs or buts. I was on private property and was asked to leave. I was legally obliged to do so. Manager, right. But don't you think? Me, interrupting, it doesn't matter what I thought. I was asked to leave private property. I'm not going to break the law and risk getting in trouble with the police. It was at this point he hung up on me. I expected to get in trouble for what had happened, but I never heard anything more about it. This was a few years back now too. It's one of my favorite stories to tell. I hope you enjoyed it. Next story. Armored delivery driver finds out they are not above the law. I worked for a dispensary and we handled a lot of cash, so every morning and sometimes 2 to 3 times throughout the day, an armored van would arrive and deliver change or pick up the safe contents. As a medical dispensary, we had a lot of patients who used the handicap parking spots. There were only 3 for the whole building, yet the morning armored truck driver would always be sure to pull his van up sideways across all 3 spots. The morning delivery took the longest, which often meant customers would arrive and not be able to use those parking spots. After asking the driver not to do this anymore, I was told to call his boss if I had a problem. His boss said if I had a problem, to handle it myself. So I did. The parking enforcement sent 2 people to our location, and when he pulled his van into place as usual across all 3 spots, they pulled an enforcement car up on either side of him and wrote him a total of 5 infractions. Shortly after we switched companies, which was probably unrelated, but I secretly think it was the small shame they felt inside after being jerks about something we all know better than to do ourselves. Next story. I don't want to distract my classmates. There was a girl at my high school who wasn't in my grade but in one of the same classes I took. She has some type of cancer or tumor. I didn't know the specifics, but had to have a couple brain surgeries, leaving giant scars all over her head. She lost her hair from the medications as well. She just wanted to experience high school like everyone else when she felt well enough to go. I remember her being so excited after wig shopping one weekend. The next Monday, walked into homeroom with some big bright Dolly Parton hair. She looked awesome, you could tell she felt so good too. Which is what mattered to us. This was a doable hairstyle if you had a couple hours and lots of patience. The teacher wasn't having it. She tried to explain, we all tried to explain as much as possible without getting too in her business. The teacher wouldn't listen and demanded she take it off, not hearing us all try to explain the cancer situation. We were all mad for her. She just smiled, took it off, and sat back, ready for class. The look on the teacher's face. I think she said something along the lines of, "I don't want to distract my classmates with my new hair, I'm sorry." The teacher couldn't focus, just kept losing her place and staring at her, the giant bright red scars. Wig or not, we thought she was beautiful anyways. Many of us went to the principal before the bell even rang. The teacher had to apologize and said she was exempt from the rule. What rule, we never found out. She just smiled and said, "But I don't want to distract my classmates," in response. The teacher left after a month. I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, make sure like, comment, share and subscribe the channel or posts.